Hey everyone, welcome to Amanda's Book Corner. I'm Amanda, and this is my review of Gurzil by I Anonymous. I want to say a special thanks to I Anonymous for reaching out to me and for forming this connection with me over the last several months. I was so happy to get an arc of Gurzil, and I'm so happy that it's out now. Everyone listening, this is an independently released book, and I definitely encourage you to go out and get it. Support your indie publishers, your indie authors, and this is a book that you'll definitely want to read. This is a first in a series, and there's more coming later this year. Gurzil is a historical fantasy book that's set in the 500s AD, or CE. It takes place after the fall of Rome, and it's inspired by legends like the Arthurian legends, as well as real-life history. At the heart of it all is the titular dragon, Gurzil, who is kind of evil. He's trying to control a lot of people and gain a lot of power over centuries. Part of the book is set in Libya, which is in the north of Africa, and it follows a puppet king named Alba. It also follows his daughter Sabra, who I believe is one of the two heroes who will ultimately rise. The other one is way over in Britain, and his name is George, and at some point the two of them are going to have to meet and hopefully defeat Gurzil. This book includes a lot of things. It includes magic, including witchcraft and dragons and jinn. It also includes war, and has a lot of discussion of real-life groups of people from the past, like the Vandals and the Celts and the Britons and the Saxons. And it's really setting up for an epic fantasy that I think is going to appeal to a lot of people, especially people who have some knowledge of the Arthurian legends, of actual history, and the different groups of people who were around in the late Roman Empire and in the aftermath of it, after the fall of the Roman Empire. It weaves together mythology and legend and history and a little bit of magic, and it is a lot of fun and even a little bit educational. So I do have to admit that this is probably not a book that I would have picked up for myself if I'd seen it in a bookstore. I don't know if it's one that I would have been drawn to specifically, and I don't mean anything bad by that. What I do mean is that this is probably something that's a little bit out of my comfort zone in terms of the types of genres and types of books that I normally read. I don't have very much experience with historical fantasy, and definitely not high fantasy. I have very limited knowledge of history and of the Arthurian legends, and this is a book that I think would more easily appeal to people who are more entrenched in the fantasy and sci-fi kind of realm. Me, I'm a little bit of a newbie here, and so you have to give me some slack there. So I kind of went into this blind, and I probably have a different perspective than other reviewers who probably have more working knowledge of the different inspirations and tropes that are used here. But what I can say is, despite my lack of knowledge and my lack of experience with this genre, I actually really enjoyed it. And this is one thing I love so much about being in the book community and having different connections with people, including authors and readers alike. It really forces me outside my comfort zone, and it allows me a chance to find out that I actually like more genres than I realize. So thank you so much, I Anonymous, for giving me this book, because I actually really did love it. Like I said, I went into this book blind without much working knowledge of the different things that inspired this book. But that's okay, because I Anonymous did a great job of including a lot of backstory and back information throughout the book that really helped you understand who these characters are and what their motives are, what their backgrounds are, and that really allows you to catch up quickly. It can kind of slow down the pace a little bit, especially in the first half of the book, because each time you're introduced to a different POV character, you have to get to know who they are, and the author does include a lot of background information up front when you meet these different characters. So that does slow down the pace a little bit, but it's not too bad, and for someone like me, it's probably pretty helpful. With all this background information being presented up front, and especially in the first half of the book, it does really feel like it's setting the stage for a big and epic fantasy. Now this book is not very long, it's only about 250 pages, maybe a little bit less than that, but it is the first in a series. I'm not sure how many books are in the series, at least 3 that I know of. And so this book in some ways does feel like a nice big introduction to everything. I assume that other books in the series that come later on will be a little bit more to the point and go straight into the action a little bit more than this one did. So there are several different POV characters in this one, and if you're someone who has some knowledge of the different inspirations, you'll probably recognize a lot of names. In my case, I am somewhat familiar with the Arthurian legends. Haven't read them, but I don't live under a rock, so I know who they are. So you'll recognize names like Merlin and Lancelot and Morgana and these different characters that are lifted from those legends. You may also recognize names of the characters that are down in Libya. They're also rooted in actual mythology and history as well. Those are things I'm less aware of, but I know that other reviewers were a little bit more informed about them. I really did like the characterization of the different people in this book. I think they're all very distinct characters, and They range from being likable to rather unlikable. For example, I'd say one of the least likable characters who has a point of view is Guntherus. He is a slave driver, slave trafficker. He's definitely not a likable person. Another person that he knows who's also definitely troubled is Unahild. She definitely, at first I thought I liked her, but then I was like, oh wow, she's working for the wrong side here. I'm not sure if I do like her. We'll see. Then there's someone like Alba, who is the king in Libya, and he's kind of lost control of his kingdom. And he's someone that I feel bad for. I don't dislike him, but I mean, addiction and grief are no joke, and I feel like he's in a really bad position personally, and that puts him in a bad position in terms of his leadership and his rule over his kingdom. So he's someone that I kind of pity, but I don't look down on him, I just feel sad for him. Then there's his daughter, Sabra, who I think is a really great character. She's one of my favorites. I think she's a really strong young woman, and I think that she's going to rise up and be very important in the later books. Through some help of someone that she knows, she gains a certain ability that I think is really cool that we see later on in the book. I think she's also just very intelligent, and she's a good fighter, and I think she has a good head on her shoulders, and so I'm excited to see what her story arc will be in the future books. I also really like George. I think he's set up as the kind of hero that you expect to see in a book like this. He's the man who's going to come down from Britain, I assume, at some point, and hopefully slay the dragon. There is a certain connection between him and Sabra, which I'm very interested to see how that goes. And you know me, I do like my love stories and little romances, and I can't help but see a little bit of a love connection between those two. We'll see how that goes. Not sure if it's a love triangle because Morgana is in the picture, and he and Morgana have a little thing going on as well. I do really like Morgana, by the way. I think she's another strong and fierce woman, although I do feel a bit worried about what her story arc is going to be. I feel nervous for her, I'll say. One of my favorite scenes is later on in the book, so I'm not going to say too much about it for spoilers, but one of my favorite scenes does involve a kind of dream sequence, and I thought that was really cool and really well done. So I think that one was the one that stood out the most to me in this book, and one that I might want to go back and reread. So there's a lot of different things at play here. There's different politics and different wars that these people are fighting. And at least in this book, it's hard to see how George is going to make it down to Libya, or how they're otherwise going to meet up in the middle. But you can see that the net is tightening as the book moves forward, and I'm really interested in seeing how that goes. Another theme that I think is very interesting in this book is the kind of cult following that's developing around Gurzil in Libya. It's very spooky how they snuck in and kind of took control over Alba without him necessarily realizing it was happening. And it's very insidious, and I'm definitely worried to see where that's going and how people are going to be able to defeat something like that. Because cults can have a lot of hidden power, and in this case they very much do, with Gurzil behind them. So it's definitely something that I'm curious to see how it unfolds later on. This book does end on a complete cliffhanger. And actually, I'm surprised with who the epilogue character is, because I didn't think it was someone that was important or even survived. And so this is an example that you can't necessarily decide who is important, who is not important, because some people can rise up unexpectedly and become very important later on. So we'll see what happens with that too. But Gurzil does end on a cliffhanger, and I'm really excited to read the next book in the series. It's called Badon Hill, and I believe it comes out in August or September. And so I'm really excited to read that one next, and I will be reviewing that one around the time it comes out as well. So overall, I really did enjoy Gurzil. I thought it was really fascinating, and I felt like I was learning a lot, and although it was a very different genre for me with very different themes than I'm used to reading about, I found it perfectly enjoyable. So whether you actually like and read a lot of fantasy and sci-fi like other people who have read it and loved it, or whether you're like me and you're kind of new to the genre but you're ready to get outside your comfort zone and try something new, I think this book can appeal to a wide array of people, and I think it's definitely one that you'll want to pick up. When I was reading it, I did notice that there was some language that felt a little bit too modern. As I understand it, the author has made some changes to it since then. This is an arc that I had, so I assume that the book that's available now will have that language updated. But all in all, this is a great book, and it's an independent author, so I think you should definitely support them. So I really enjoyed reading Gurzil, and I can't wait to read the next book. I gave Gurzil 4.5 stars. Also, special thanks again to iAnonymous for sending me an arc of this book. I'm really happy that you thought of me, and I really enjoyed the chance to read this book. So I hope you enjoyed this book review video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. And to make sure you don't miss any more of my videos, please ring the bell to get all my notifications. I put out about 2 to 3 book review videos like this one every week, as well as one to do other videos like vlogs and listicles. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!